Welcome to the 10th Standard Social Science class. Today's lesson is power sharing. But before starting the class, as usual, I want you to get ready with a pen and a notebook to note down the important points while we are discussing this important lesson. So get ready soon, children. So as you know that this is an important chapter from the examination point of view. So with this chapter we actually resume the tour of democracy that we started somewhere last year. We noted last year that in a democracy all powers does not rest with any one organ of the state. An intelligent sharing of power among legislature, executive and judiciary is very important to the design of a democracy. In this chapter, we are going to see with the two stories, one from Belgium and other from Sri Lanka. Both these stories are about how democracies handle demands for power sharing. The stories yield some general conclusions about the need for power sharing in democracy. This allows us to discuss various forms of power sharing that will be taken up in the next chapters. So Belgium and Sri Lanka. Okay, we are going to see now. So what is power sharing? Power sharing is a technique to share the power at different levels. It is an idea inculcated in democracy so that the power is not concentrated at one hand only and that different forms can keep a check on each other. India is an example of holding together federations where the power is shared between central government and different constituent states. Ethnic communities of Sri Lanka. We are going to see the stories of Sri Lanka and Belgium. First we are going to see Sri Lanka now. So Sri Lanka emerged as an independent country in 1948. The leaders of the Sinhala community sought to secure dominance over government by virtue of their majority. Here, Sinhala population were more. As a result, the democratically elected government adopted a series of majoritarian measures to establish Sinhala supremacy. So what is majoritarianism? It is a belief that the majority community should be able to rule a country in whatever way it wants, but disregarding the wishes and needs of the minority. I am repeating this again. What is majoritarianism? It is a belief that the majority community should be able to rule the country in whatever way it wants by disregarding the wishes and needs of the minority. Okay, so in 1956, an act was passed to recognize Sinhala as the only official language, thus disregarding Tamil. The governments followed preferential policies that favored Sinhala applicants for university positions and government jobs. The new constitution stipulated that the state shall protect and foster Buddhism. So these were the main three steps that were taken by the government of Sri Lanka in 1956. So as I told you, after independence in 1948, Sri Lanka adopted a series of majoritarian measures to establish Sinhalese supremacy over the Tamils. So, as I told you, in 1956 an act was passed to recognize Sinhala as the only official language. That's the first point to remember. Next, again, Sinhala speakers were preferred for both university positions and government jobs. So what were the reasons for dominance of Sinhala community? It was due to majority, and again an act came in 1956 which made Sinhala as the only official language, and preferential policies favoring Sinhalese in university positions and jobs, and state to protect and foster what? Buddhism. All these government measures coming one after another gradually increased the feeling of alienation among the Sri Lankan Tamils. They felt that none of the major political parties led by the Buddhist Sinhala leaders were sensitive to the language and culture. They felt that the constitution and government policies denied them. What did they deny? Equal political rights, discriminated against them in getting jobs and other opportunities, and ignored their interest. As a result, what happened? The relations between the Sinhala and the Tamil communities strained over time. The Sri Lankan Tamils launched parties and struggles for the recognition as Tamil as their official language, for regional autonomy and equality of opportunity in securing education and jobs. So the Tamilians, Sri Lankan Tamils started fighting with the Sinhala people. But their demand for more autonomy to provinces populated by the Tamils was repeatedly denied. So by 1980s, several political organizations were formed demanding an independent Tamil Elam in northern and eastern parts of Sri Lanka. So a civil war slowly started over there. Okay. So why is power sharing desirable is the point to be discussed now. Prudential reasons. It reduces the possibility of conflicts. It provides stability to the government. There are moral reasons also. Power sharing is the very spirit of democracy, and people have the right to be consulted on how they are to be governed. So why is power sharing desirable is answered by these 4 points. Forms of power sharing. Power is shared among different organs of the government. Power is shared among government at different levels also. Power is shared among different social groups, and power is also shared among political parties, pressure groups, and different movements also. So these are different forms of power sharing. So the idea of power sharing has emerged in opposition to notions of undivided political powers. For a long time, it was believed that all power of a government must reside in one person or group of persons located in one place. It was felt that if the power to decide is dispersed, it would not be possible to take quick decisions and to enforce them. But these notions have changed with the emergence of democracy. One basic principle of democracy you should remember, children, is that people are the source of all political power. In a democracy, people rule themselves through institutions of self-governance. In a good democratic government, due respect is given to diverse groups and views that exist in the society. Everyone has a voice in the shaping of public policies. Therefore, it follows that in a democratic, political power should be distributed among as many citizens as possible. So, in a democracy, political power should be distributed among as many citizens as possible. In modern democracies, power sharing arrangements can take many forms as we are written over here. I am going to discuss one by one in detail now. Power is shared among different organs of government such as legislature, executive and judiciary. Let us call this horizontal distribution of power because it allows different organs of government placed at the same level to exercise different powers. Such a separation ensures that none of the organs can exercise unlimited power. Each organ checks the others. This results in the balance of power among various institutions. If you remember, last year we studied that in a democracy, even though ministers and government officials exercise power, they are responsible to the parliament or state assemblies. Similarly, although judges are appointed by executive, they can check the functioning of executives or laws made by the legislatures. This arrangement is called a system of checks and balances. This is an important point from the examination point of view. Checks and balances, they have asked her many times. Do read this many a times, children. Second point, power can be shared among governments at different levels. Green color, you can see the green color point I am exaggerating that. Okay. A general government for the entire country and a government at the provincial or regional level. Such a general government for the entire country is usually called federal government. In India, we refer to it as a central or union government. The government at the provincial or regional level are called by different names in different countries. In India, we call them state government. This system is not followed in all countries. There are many countries where there are no provincial or state governments. But in those countries like us, where there are different levels of government, the constitution clearly lays down the powers of different levels of government. That is what they did in Belgium. We'll read that in the next class. But what was refused in Sri Lanka. This is called federal division of power. The same principle can be extended to levels of government lower than the state government, such as the municipality and the panchayat. Let us call division of powers involving highest and lower levels of government vertical division or vertical divisions of power. Third point, power is shared among different social groups, such as the religious and linguistic groups. Community government, we read it in Belgium, we are going to see in Belgium what happened later. In some countries, there are constitutional and legal arrangements whereby socially weaker sections and women are represented in the legislatures and administration. If you remember in the last class we studied about, when you were 9th study, we studied about reserved constituencies as in assemblies and the parliament of a country. This type of arrangement is meant to give space in the government and administration to diverse and social groups who otherwise would feel alienated from the government. This method is used to give minority communities a fair share in power. The fourth point, power is shared among political parties, pressure groups and movements which control or influence those in power. In a democracy, the citizens must have freedom to choose among various contenders for power. In contemporary democracies, this takes the form of competition among different parties. Such competition ensures that power does not remain in one hand. In a long run, power is shared among different political parties that represent different ideologies and social groups. Sometimes this kind of sharing can be direct when two or more parties form an alliance to contest elections. If their alliance is elected, they form a coalition government and thus share power. In a democracy, we find interest groups such as those of traders, businessmen, industrialists, farmers and industrial workers. They also will have a share in governmental power, either through participation in government committees or bringing influence on the decision-making process. So these are the different forms of power. Power sharing on different organs of government, as I taught you: legislature, executive and judiciary. Legislature, executive and judiciary keep a check on each other. This results in balance of power among various institutions. This arrangement is also called as system of checks and balances. Power sharing, we have central government, state government and local self-government at different levels of the government here. Under this arrangement, government and administration give space to diverse social groups. In this way, minority communities get a fair share in the power. So, with this, we actually come to this particular part of this lesson, power sharing. Hope you are reading well at home, children. Do complete your home assignments in time. Be safe, children. Thank you.